in our culture, it's very honored if we can have you to share a little bit about you, the work you are doing for our audience. Please do that, would you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a clinical psychologist by training. Before that, I was a school counselor. So I work in schools. And very shortly after becoming a clinical psychologist, I went right into management and leadership roles within the Department of Veterans Affairs in the US. That is supporting veterans. And my roles were within mental health research operations. So I was the deputy director of one mental health center of excellence, the interim director of another one, and then eventually supporting all 17 mental health centers of excellence with their productivity metrics and networking and community building. And I grew a strong interest in organizational development, which is helping leaders and teams work better together and more effectively over time. And so now I'm a senior organizational development psychologist with the Department of Veterans Affairs. I get to do leadership coaching and team development with leaders and teams across the country. And then I also have a company called Towerscope. It's a social impact company. It supports women in leadership as well as team development within certain disrupted industries within the learning and innovation space. So in healthcare, academics, education, STEM, and tech industries. So that's what I do right now. And I'm building my own community around that as well.
Beautiful, and I believe that your clients will be benefiting, very happy to receive services from you with good
Thank you.
care.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. So Mira, with the project that I asked you to join, sharing about longevity and wisdom, and you said that you accepted it. So I would like to know, what was in your thinking, when you agreed to join this project.
I like you.
Thank you. Me too.
It's fun to talk with you, and I knew that I when you reached out to me, I said, well, I know nothing about this as an expert. I can talk about my own thoughts about, as I worked with leaders and things like that. And you said that sounds great. And I had a great time on your previous show where you focused on thinking and how people think, and I thought, well, this will be fun. So I said yes.
And this interview is we're gonna ask you a lot of questions, okay? And hopefully that we're not gonna ask put you into the difficult situation, okay? So
Appreciate that.
I think that it's always good to start small, start with something that easy, and so each of us have a different definition of wisdom, right? I would just want to know for Dr. Mira, what does wisdom means to you?
Yeah. So yes, I said yes, and yes, I have no expertise in this, but I decided because I like to over prepare. I
Uh-huh.
wrote all of my thoughts down right before we got on this call about what I think wisdom is, because I knew you were going to ask this question. I'm going to read what I wrote here,
All
and we'll
right.
see kind of where it takes it, okay?
Okay.
I wrote having information and then knowing what to do with it, um, taking time to reflect and then learn and grow from your introspection,
Mhm.
understanding things in ways that others might not, due to you having a broader perspective and
Mhm.
taking in more information, critical thinking, adapting, having experience that you can learn from, quicker decision making based on past experiences that you've learned from and incorporated, learning from history, knowing you don't know everything, so having some
Mhm.
humility about what you don't know,
Mhm.
um, knowing when not to make a quick snap decision and that you need more information, um, developing a gut intuition about things. Um, it may or may not come with age. Um,
Mm.
young people could have wisdom, older people could have wisdom, young people may not, older people may not. knowing when to listen to someone's advice and when not to, being able to imagine the impact of various decisions and options and being able to take the best course of action among multiple options, having sound judgment and being able to identify your biases around that. And I also wrote that continuous learning doesn't mean you have wisdom. It just means
Ah,
you're able to learn. Um, and then I added a one more picture in my mind, an image of my mind, who, we all think about Yoda in Star Wars as
mm,
having wisdom. And I thought, like, why do we think that? And what does he do? And I wrote, so Yoda embodies this and demonstrates that there's a piece about emotions and feelings that he demonstrates the understanding of how feelings connect to wisdom and when to internally use those feelings to make decisions and when to pause because of those feelings.
wow. You look
Those
at
are
my
all my
notes.
thoughts.
You look at my notes. I try to note everything while you're talking so that I'm gonna be in the same page with you.
I'll
And
mail you my own notes on it.
and here you have having take time, right, and then have a broader perspective, critical thinking, to learning from history, to so many things in there. And so when you research on those items that you list down, what came to your mind? The idea came to your mind when you read those things.
Yeah, I was actually kind of amazed as I was writing them. I was thinking about my own clients and I was thinking
Oh,
about like, what I teach them and what we talk about. And it just like dawned on me that even though I don't say, I am going to teach you to be wiser, that actually that is part of what I'm doing is helping people develop an internal wisdom about how to make decisions, when to sort of pause and think through a really hard decision, how to reflect internally about what their reactions are, when it's hard to develop that. Like I just kind of realized it's something that I help my clients with without saying I'm trying to build wisdom within you.
and in which I believe that they do understand that you are helping them to get there. All right, you just you so humble not to accepting that until now. So
Right. Now, the other thing I was thinking, I was reflecting on is uh, we've always said, so we've got two kids right now, 15-year-old, 18-year-old. And we've always said about the 18-year-old that he came out an 80-year-old. Like he wasn't born, 1-year-old or whatever, zero. He was born an 80-year-old. And every year of his life, he's been trying to catch up with his old, wise internal age, his developmental internal age. And that's what made me write down that wisdom isn't necessarily always associated with age, because I feel like
mm,
my son is like a wise old soul, and he comes up with just the most interesting, thoughtful things and really deep advice that you think, how did you even come up with this? You barely had a life, but I just think that some young people just think really deeply about things and take a lot of time to reflect and learn from other people and watch other people and then take it all in to, sort of create a framework in their head about how to make decisions. So I was also reflecting on that with this.
beautiful, beautiful, and that is he's born naturally like that. A lot of people
Yeah.
have that capacity, from themselves, right? So I want to go into that point first, okay? Because
Mm-hmm.
aging doesn't mean that elderly people will have wisdom or young people would not have wisdom, right? So be specific on your son's case, all right? What did he do differently that make him to be able to open that reservoirs to absorb information, to think, to reflect, and to build a different paradigm of world in the early age like that? You think?
Yeah. I, Well, partly I don't think I had anything to do with it, and I have no idea how he developed it. But if I remember what I watched, even at like 2 or 3 years old, or even a year and a half, you would look at him, and he'd have this serious face, and he
Mm.
was looking intently at each person. And I think he was probably, you know, um, maybe because our children are children of two psychologists, deeply introspective, and he observed a lot and he took in a lot of information. And he was just a very curious person. So I think curiosity is part of it, like, being interested in why something is happening in the way that it is. Um, he he was always curious, and over time we also taught him to ask a lot of questions and to explore and to learn. He'd ask a question, we'd say, look it up, go look it up and find out and
Mm.
tell us. And then we'd have a conversation about it. So he'd look it up and he'd say, here's what I learned, and then we'd add more to it. More perspective, more perspective, more perspective. So what has happened over time with him, unfortunately, is that kids start developing an interest. Like we all start developing an interest, and then once we do, we read more and more and more and more about that one thing. That sometimes you start like closing in, on that one thing. And it's important for wisdom, I think, to keep it as open as possible so that we're not missing information from other people's perspectives. So that's what we've been trying to teach him in the last 5 years is, yeah, but what do you think that other people think about this? Or that's your opinion, that's your perspective. There's here this other perspective. So I think there's part of what was inside, naturally for him, and then what we're trying to help hone in his own sort of growth with his wisdom.
He's very lucky, gentleman, because he has the parents who are both psychologists. So you know how to help him to navigate the world differently. So reopening that path instead of keep narrowing it down to one direction. But not a
Yeah.
lot of people out there will be able to do that to their children,
No,
even
no.
to
Although,
themselves too. Yeah.
yeah, although he's partly lucky, and we partly feel bad for these children having two psychologists as parents, because sometimes they're like, oh, I don't want to think through this anymore. They we've in some ways taught them to overthink everything,
Mm.
and sometimes it's nice not to.
So I'll change the question. So assuming like it's a regular family, okay, or regular couple or anything, and then one person is having that narrowing into the view, and how can we help the other person be able to see, to help that particular person to open the door again to us to open for more information, more feedbacks, and more ideas?
Yeah, this is a really great question, and I will talk about it from like kind of normal human development, and then I'll talk about it from a mental health perspective, which I think makes it much, much harder. So from normal human development, um, just being able to, when you listen to someone and they're, let's say, really upset about something, something happened at work, somebody upset, you, just being able to help that person take a step back and reflect. Tell me more, what happened, and when did that happen, and what do you think were the circumstances around that, and is it possible there was anything else happening for that person that had nothing to do with you? Because we often take things very personally, and then we tell stories in our mind about what it might mean, and we might personalize it when it might not be about us at all. And so just being able to ask a lot of questions to broaden the what actually happened in the moment and what does that mean, goes a long way. Now, if for people who have had traumatic experiences and backgrounds, right?
Mm.
Um, what happens is it is much harder to open up that aperture, to have more perspectives outside of that because they were under a threat. And when we're under threat, everything closes in and we're just trying to protect ourselves and in survival mode. So we take in less information out that is outside of that one, experience of threat or multiple. And so then it's much, much harder to see things from a different perspective or step outside of it. And one of the things that I, think about often when it comes to wisdom and generations is that you could have people in families that are repeating trauma, multi-generational trauma, like domestic violence and abuse, where you have that experience and then you marry someone who also repeats the same pattern as your parents did. And then you repeat the same pattern with your children. And the only way to come out of that and break it is to actually stop and interrupt and do something different. And usually it's hard to do that without having somebody else outside of you, like a therapist, helping
Oh,
you think about doing things differently, trying something out and seeing what happens, and like recreating brand new, healthier habits with people.
beautiful. And that recreation of brand new habit needs the efforts from all parties, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
if one party does not want to participate, it's not going to happen also.
It's not going to happen. And in that case, you have to decide, um, do I want to grow outside of this?
Mm,
And if so, the only way to end it for some people is to end the relationship or leave the unhealthy situation and start, a new life, a new way of doing and thinking and being, which is very, very difficult for most people, right?
mm.
It requires a lot of work for you to realize, if I stay in this situation, I'll just be repeating and repeating and repeating. That's not really growth. It's not wisdom. It's just getting stuck in a very bad, unhealthy, vicious cycle. And, part of wisdom is learning from our past,
Mm,
learning from our history, learning from our personal past, and then doing something with it
yeah.
that is hopefully a healthier way of being and getting meaning out of that.
Why don't we know? We know what's good for us. We know what's currently not good for us, but we don't take action. A lot of us don't take action. Why? What happened to us then?
I think it partly is fear. A
Yeah.
lot of it is fear. We don't know what will happen on the other side of trying. And many of us fear just trying something new. What if we fail? What if somebody gets angry with us for trying something different and they don't want us to be different? You know, it's, yeah, it's a lot of fear.
Wow. So how can we help them to get out of that fear?
Yeah, I I think just trying.
Fine.
And sometimes it means trying with while someone is kind of holding your hand while you're doing it and taking very, very tiny steps. So, um, for example, if you have a therapist or a coach or a friend or a parent, somebody that you trust, and they have faith in you and they say, you can do this,
Mm,
right? And you say, but I'm afraid it's not going to work out. I'm not going to succeed, or I don't know what will happen if we try. Um, then trying the tiniest next step that gets you closer. So it doesn't, you don't have to go from like 0 to 60 and do it all, right? You can go from 0 to 10%. What's the 10% difference that will help you figure out
mm,
if this is worth trying? And then having that person in your life that you trust saying, you can do this, I'll be here if things don't work out. That makes a huge difference to how we grow, and how we sort of learn from mistakes or from trying or taking risks and overcoming fear. Um, the same mechanism is used for people with really bad anxiety. Like
mm,
if I have a fear of heights, which I do.
Yeah.
If you have a fear of heights, I'm not going to go to the top of the Eiffel Tower as my first thing. I'm too afraid, right? But I might go with my husband on top of like a bridge, which we've done, which, there was this bridge in the mountains that is like, I don't know, 100 feet above, or I don't even remember how high it is, but it was terrifying. And he's just holding my hand and I'm taking tiny little steps and I go as far as I can. And then he makes me go a little further. All of that is called like a hierarchy of exposure therapy. And we could
Mm.
apply that to anything in our lives that we're nervous about or scared of. When I was scared about speaking in front of people, right? I didn't go straight to like, let me speak in front of 300 people. I said, okay, let me gather, a group of 5 people and speak in front of them and see how that is. And then I spoke in front of people that knew me and I knew them and I felt comfortable. And then so I just expanded just a little bit more. And
Mm.
each time you learn something new, and I think that does feed into our kind of wisdom. It's not just about learning, it's about what am I doing with that learning to um, help me make better decisions each and every time, to adjust each time, to reflect like, how is that for me? Why was that part scary and why was that not scary? What would I do next time in order to make it less scary based on what I just learned? So it's not just repeating like habits, it's also listening to yourself in order to adjust over time.
Beautiful. And that is a strength that a lot of people not having it also, the ability to reflect and see what works, right? So
Yeah.
what would they, how would you advise them to do to expand that ability to reflect and absorb information?
That's a great question. So I work with a lot of leaders who always say, I have no time. And they actually have no time because they have packed their schedules back to back to back to back to back meetings all day long, all day long, all day long. And of course, they have no time to reflect. All they're doing is doing, right? They're just acting, they're reacting to what comes at them. Um, if you continue doing that, your wisdom is not going to grow. It's you're just going to keep reacting in the same way each and every time. And at some point, you'll just kind of hit your max of what to do or how to do it. Um, Now, most leaders and most of us want to be more thoughtful and more intentional and more strategic, right? We want to make better decisions in our lives. And so what you need to do is carve out the time to reflect. And it could be by yourself. And if it's by yourself, you put it in your calendar. This is my reflection time. I want to be working on X, Y, and Z. And you write or you think or, you know, um, you know, practice meditation, whatever it is that helps you slow down and reflect on what's happening. You could even build in practices like my husband and I have a practice of walking around the block for about 30 minutes
Mm.
at the end of every day. And yes, we're connecting, right? Reconnecting as a unit. But what we're also doing is trying to make sense of what happened during our day and getting some reactions and thinking through it. And that is reflection time, right? So you could do it with another person. You could do it with a coach, you could do it with a therapist, you could do it with your spouse, you could do it with your child or your grandfather, whoever helps you slow down and think through what happens and make sense of things. And what happens when you do that is like all of a sudden they'll ask you various questions and you'll have insights. And those
Mm.
insights could be translated into next steps. Oh, wow, I just realized that as a result of this conversation, that it makes no sense for me to work out in the morning because I'm depleted and then I start the day already exhausted and my brain's not there. Maybe I should switch. Maybe I should work out at, the end of the day and I'm going to try that. Now, what happens with most people is so the first challenge is actually spending time reflecting, right?
Mm-hmm.
I also know a lot of people that love to spend time reflecting and thinking and thinking and thinking, and they dream up things and they get all of these ideas, but then they don't do anything with that information. They
Yeah.
just there's actually some research that says, like, for some people, they feel like they actually accomplish something and feel satisfied by just thinking through the issue, and then they could, like, let it sit there. But if you keep coming back to the same thoughts, the same ideas about needing to change your habits, or stop doing something that is harmful or problematic, and then you don't do it, then wisdom's not growing there. You
Yeah.
actually have to apply what you learned and try it out to gain more experience from that application. Because wisdom is about experience. It's not just about learning or insight. It's about application and, experience from applying, so you could get better and better and better at it over time. So
Beautiful.
there's a second piece. Yeah.
So I would like to take to the next stage is the second piece. So now we have time to reflect, right? We have idea generated through that reflection moment. But if we want to bring from that ideas into actions to make sure that we can gain the experiences, and some people have something to stop them from moving the needle forward. So what should they do?
So I am a big fan of accountability partners. Are you familiar
Mm,
with this term? Yes. So accountability partners are um, people that are helping you accomplish the things that you want to actually do, your goals. So they might even be people who are trying to accomplish the same goals, but they don't have to be. So, for
mm,
example, you could have um, somebody who is trying to build their habit of going to the gym, um, or running a half marathon or something, just like you. So
mm,
now both of you go at the same time each time, and you're doing it together now. And because it's an accountability partner, you can't let them down. You have to show up for them because they're depending on you. I have a writing group that I meet with every Friday from 10 to 12. Okay. And if I don't show up, that's not fair to them. And so
mm,
I show up for them, they show up for me. We use that time to write. It's the way that I wrote my first book, Millennials Guide to Workplace Politics. It's the way that I'm writing my second book and my third book. You know, I use that as accountability to help me focus and do the things that I might be avoiding because it's arduous, right? Um, you could have um, it, but you don't have to have them as, like, people who want to do the same thing.
mm,
It could be you going to a colleague and saying, um, you know, I have this challenge. I keep apologizing for things in meetings that I shouldn't be apologizing for. I don't know why. It's a tick, it's a habit. I want to stop. And every time you hear me apologizing in a meeting, I want you to tell me. And when you hear me starting to no longer apologize, I want you to tell me. And it sort of helps you have kind of that external support to do the things that you need to do, but you're avoiding, or it's very difficult without having, like, an additional little nudge.
mm. It's interesting to me when you talk about accountability, partner. I know that partnership is very important, right? But if we had the wrong partner, that is also really, really impactful because I saw a lot of my friends by the summer want to, like prepare months in advance to exercise so that they can go for vacation on the beach vacation. But then after that, it's all gone and going back to the
Oh,
old bad habit and stuff like that. So if we select a partner, yeah, if in your case, if you select your accountability partner, how can you know that that person is accountable to be a part of that journey that you want to create a new habit?
yeah, that is a great question. Um, I often recommend, and we do this in my Towerscope Leadership Academy. I assign them with accountability partners, but I also let them know, first of all, you're assigned for, a quarter of the year. If after the quarter you feel like you've gotten what you needed or you want to move on, you want a new partner, we'll give you a new partner. And so there isn't, um, a long-term forever commitment. You're sort of trying people out. And so what happens is when they find the right partner, they will stick with them. And if they don't, it sort of peters out, and then they'll look for a different partner and that kind of thing. But I also set up rules. You need to have a contract with your accountability partner. So, I asked them to sit down and talk through how often will we meet, for how long, what will we help each other out with, and how will we make sure that we hold to what we just agreed to do. And how will we talk about if we're not doing what we agreed to do? So having those kind of rules of engagement for an accountability partner helps with like conflict management when something goes wrong. You don't want to make an assumption that somebody's not wanting to support you. Maybe there's something going on, but you need kind of a structure to it in order to say, like, I've noticed we're meeting less and less often. So is something going on? Should we kind of close this out? And then I often say, like, just have a deadline of how long you'll work together. And at the end of that, let's say, let's try 3 months, right? I do this with a lot of people. I say, like, hey, let's meet like for half an hour every other week for 3 months, and then we'll see what we think about it. And at the end of that, oh, it's been 3 months. What do you think? I feel like this has been helpful to me. I don't know if it's been helpful to you, but I'd like to continue if it's useful to you. Or we're not really meeting very often. Let's sort of close this out. When we're ready, we can always reconnect again. So it just helps to have the deadline so you don't feel like it just sort of fizzles out and then you don't know what to say about it.
I know it now. It's very important because when we first study something, the emotion kicks in, right? So we really, we're really, really exciting, and but along the way, that balloon gets, leaked out the air, and set it up the time to check in, and it's really important. And thanks for sharing that. Yes.
Yeah. Now, here's where wisdom comes in, because you asked a really good question about how do you know when somebody's a good accountability partner or not. And I do think this is where wisdom comes in, because if you've had enough experience with trying things over and over and things not working out, then you have a gut feeling whether things will work out or not with this person, right? So for me, when I'm talking with someone and maybe we're thinking like, let's hold each other accountable to this, and we're all like super excited about it, I don't assume that first initial emotion means that much, right? I just feel like if it's not very clear right away that we're super serious and it's been too vague of a conversation, then I will say, let me think about how this might work. Give me, some time and I'll come back to you. And that's what I do with my reflection time is, am I feeling like this is going to work out and I'm really committed to it? Or am I feeling some weird gut feeling like, I don't think this makes sense to me, and I might not be able to point my finger about exactly what, but I've learned to trust my gut about that because I've had enough experience with both successes and failures that I can put this situation in one of those categories. This doesn't match all the success factors that I've had experience with. It matches more the failure factors, so it's not going to work out. And so then I can come back and say, I'm not sure we're ready for this. Let's keep talking about it if you like,
Beautiful, beautiful. I think having the time to cool it down and relocate it in the holistic view will give you a lot of insights and a lot of wisdom about whether or not it's going to work, or some adjustment is needed, right? Otherwise, a lot of us, a lot of people will come, jump to conclusions so quickly, and then a week later, a month later, a quarter later, we fail and start looking at each other with different kind of, like thinking and feelings. It's just bad that way. So that's where wisdom kicks in, right?
That's right. And this is also where Understanding yourself really well
Mm.
makes a difference again in this idea of wisdom. I know, just like what you described, that I get very excited about things. Yeah, let's do it. This sounds exciting, And then we're like making these big grand plans, and I already know that that's me, and that is not a good place for me to make a decision from. And so the moment I find myself um, saying at a first conversation with someone that I just met, or wanting to say, let's do this idea and let's commit to something. The moment I start feeling like I want to say that, I back off and I say, Mira, there's something here that is causing you to get too excited too fast without knowing this person well enough. And so, as excited as you are, you just say, let me think about it.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, because that's just me knowing myself, right?
Wow. And I think for thousands of years, knowing oneself is the hardest thing. And then you
Yes.
touch right there. The hardest, answer to the wisdom is how to know ourselves, so that you have the capacity, a self reminder inside of you. Say, hey, hold on 1 second, Mirror. You just step 1 second back and don't give the answer right away like that. So the question now is, how can I know myself? What practice can I do to make it happen?
Yeah. There's a lot of different ways. I'll share the long term and then some easy things. So the long
Yes.
term is obviously like take a lot of assessments, personality assessments, work style assessments, career style assessments. I have taken so many assessments to learn about myself, right? Go to therapy, go to coaching, just ask feedback from other people in your life. What do you think I'm good at? What do you think are my greatest strengths? What do you think I'm most challenged by? You can ask um, a lot of people in your life that same question to gather some data, right? Pay attention when people do give you feedback, including really positive feedback that you dismiss. So
Mm.
if somebody says, wow, you're so good at that, and you're like, it's easy, it's no big deal, that's when you should pay attention, because you are not realizing that there's something special about you that other people see in you that comes so easily and so naturally that it's part of your core. And that is where you should pay attention as much as when they tell you something they don't like about you, or
Ah.
you know. Um, so that's a long term, like self development. Um, I do have one tool. I'm putting it in my book, but it's also free and available on my website. It's called the Yes No Grid. And I'll just describe how to do it. So you don't actually have to go to the website, but if you're interested, it's on my website under free resources at gotowerscope.com. Um, what I did for myself is I had maybe 3 or 4 years ago realized that I had overcommitted to all of these things that was not bringing me any happiness. And I was regretting every time. I was 3 months in, 4 months in, regretting taking on these seemingly wonderful opportunities. And I'm thinking, now I've overloaded myself with things that make me unhappy. And now it's even harder to extract myself. So this is not a good pattern for me.
Mm. Mm.
See if I can do something different. So I started tracking. It's like a 2 by 2 grid. Yes, no, right? And did I say yes to this, or did I say no to this? And was I happy about the decision afterwards, or what did I regret the decision afterwards? And I just started like writing notes for myself on my whiteboard, which is like right up here next to me, so that it,
Uh-huh.
it was in front of me every time somebody um, invited me to do something. So I could always look back and remind myself what I did. And I started tracking, um, when you have these three set of circumstances, every time those three things are there and you said yes, you regretted it. So now every time somebody's in front of you and they offer and you ask a bunch of questions and it meets those three, you better say yeah, no, Mira, because you weren't happy before, so you better say no. And what it also helped me do is say no more easily
Mm.
because I have a reason for it. It's so much easier to say, thank you so much for offering this. What I have learned over time, as I've reflected, is that these kind of opportunities that have this or this or this actually don't make me feel good after I say yes. And I don't want to commit to something and then regret it. And then you feel badly that, I actually need to remove myself after I made that commitment. It would be bad for me. It would be bad for you, you know? And so they completely understood what I was talking about, but I had examples and a great way to explain to people why I was making the decision. So that
Beautiful.
helped me gain a lot of wisdom about myself, just tracking my decision making and where it was coming from.
What is that called? Yes, no, what?
The yes no grid, because it's like a two by
Yeah,
two
no,
grid.
great. So it's on your website.
Yeah, yeah. You just
Yeah.
go under free resources, and it's one of the things that you can download to try it
I
out for yourself. Yeah.
Okay, I will try it with my wife because
All
she
right.
has a lot of moment of of accepting to do something for somebody and then regret it
Oh,
later, but keep doing that over and over and over again. I say, okay, now Dr. Mira say, try this, and then you see how
yeah.
it goes together. I
Absolutely.
have
I'd love to hear what she thinks about it if she tries it.
absolutely, absolutely. One last question for this conversation, all right? And I pick in here. One thing is very, very, very new to me, and I love it to hearing that from you. You said that continuous learning doesn't mean that people will accumulate wisdom from there. It's just learning. And a
Mhm.
lot of the time, I thought that learning is will helping me to get more wisdom. So it's contradicted my word at the moment. Yeah. So help me to understand what you mean by that, please.
Yeah, I think that you can be very, very knowledgeable and still make bad decisions.
True. Yes.
So,
A lot.
um, there are some people who have degrees and certificates and all of these, degrees on their walls and things like that, and they still make decisions as if they were still 5 years old. You know, where it's coming only from emotion, or it's snap judgments, or it's repeating the unhealthy relationships or their past. And you know so learning, when it comes to wisdom, it's about adding your personal reflections, your experiences, how people work. um there's a people element to it,
Mm.
and there's I think it's about the reflection and the application of what you learn to future circumstances that add the wisdom. If you have knowledge, but then you don't reflect on how to use that knowledge, how you apply it in a way that benefits you or benefits other people in a healthy way, then, it's just knowledge, but it's not wisdom.
Beautiful. Did you have you heard about the book called The Intelligent Trap?
No, tell me about it.
It's a very, very beautiful book written by a journalist. I'll send you the link, the name of it. And on that book, I got a chance to not only to read the book, but also pick out so many names in there, and I connect with them and interview so many amazing people within that beautiful book. So I think it fits really well with what you just said. So I send you
Really?
the link later, okay?
Thank you.
Uh,
Yeah.
Yes. I say that that was the last question, but we have 3 minutes until the end. So I want to ask a bizarre question. A bizarre question because I promised
All
my
right.
speaking coach I will ask bizarre question every time. I want to sit walk with you and your husband, for that 30 minutes around the block every night. Okay, so assuming that I was there. So
Uh-huh.
what would be the question that you and your husband talk to each other?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we would just sort of share about what happened, which is
Hmm.
just like, the context. It's just information, right? But then either um, we would share about something that made us really excited and why, or something that made us really upset. And in either way, so this is going back to emotions and using emotions to learn from them. In either way, um, we would then ask each other follow-up questions. So, um, Jeff, tell me more about like what they said that made you so upset, you know,
Hmm.
and um, what else was happening at that time? And is it possible that that wasn't about you? Like, and well, actually, here's my reaction. I know that was your reaction to what just happened, but I have a totally different reaction to this. And here's what it is. And that like grows his reaction and perspective to the situation. Um, and then we might problem solve, like, so what are you going to do about this? You know, and what do you want to do about this? Or do you want to let it go? Or, oh, actually, Jeff, I heard you say that about this person 3 other times on our walks. So now I'm hearing a pattern. What's that
Hmm.
about? You know,
Hmm.
um, it's hard for me to pull out of myself those kind of patterns, or um, listen to another voice. It's always helpful to hear like the additional reactions, interpretation, expanding the perspective, all of that. That's basically what we're doing. And sometimes it's
Beautiful.
just dreaming together. It's I I would love to someday be able to do this. I'm not really even sure how I would get there, but I want to do that. And then we just start talking through it. So it could be any number of those things.
Beautiful. And I wish that every people would have a accountable partner like that, to have that very specific, very beautiful moment in the during the night, to end the day, right? With thinking, with reflection, with helping one another to grow. Mira, thanks a lot for this beautiful conversation, and I love to see you and your family in Vietnam this December, right?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Noha. It's been a pleasure as always to talk with you.
As
And I
always.
can't wait to hear your other interviews and what you learn from all of the collective information and wisdom from everybody. It's going to
Thank
be
you,
great.
thank you. It will be.
Yeah.
I look forward to sharing that information later. Mira, you have a
Awesome.
wonderful
Awesome.
day. Okay, tell people I say hello,
Thank you
please.
too. Yes.
Yeah.
Tell your wife I said hi.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.